boys and girls. Today we are learning about estimating when we measure, and this is our objective. I have written it out here for you. I am learning to estimate and compare measurement in inches, feet, yards, and miles. Please make sure you pause and go ahead and write that down in your notes. This right here. I am learning to estimate and compare measurement in inches, feet, yards, and miles. And what we have here that I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you the differences between a yard and a foot. So right here we have 1 yard, this is a yardstick, and a yardstick is equal to 36 inches, which is the same as 3 feet. And as you can see, I've shown you by putting 3 1-foot long rulers underneath the yardstick so you can see how that matches up. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. And we have a little inchworm here that we can kind of put really close there to the inches so you can kind of see, just get some perspective on how different measurements look and how they relate to the real world. Let's take a look at this little film right here about inchworms. And as you can see, there's an inchworm there on a big playground, inching his little way up, and there's another little inchworm right there. And they're just inching around. And you can see how small they are in comparison to the playground equipment. I mean, you can even see the grains of the wood right up next to them. That's how small an inchworm is. So an inch really isn't all that big. And I just wanted to show you that so we can kind of get some real world feel about how big an inch really is. Now let's get a little bit bigger and be thinking a little bit bigger. A football field is exactly 100 yards. We just looked at the yardstick. Let's look at that again. So 100 of these is a football field. 100 of these. And 3 rulers fit into a yard. So think about that. All right, so let's take a look at the football field again. You can see kind of the perspective of, you can see the people's heads right here and how big that really is. A football field is really big. 100 yards is quite large. Okay, so let's take a look at the next slide. This gives us a little sort of a bird's eye view and up above view of what a football field would look like. And we have, it's got 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 yards. So a football field is 100 yards all the way across. And I'm sure you guys have watched football and seen someone have to run all those yards to get from one side to the end zone and then make a goal. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Look at that. And those big lines represent every 10 yards. See how it takes them a while to run across all those yards? They just passed the 40. There was the 30-yard line. See how small they look in relation to every 10 yards? So this just gives you a good idea of, what it really looks like on a football field and how, how small the people are in comparison to these 10, 20, 30, 40 yards going across. Let's take a look at the next slide, see what we have. We're still talking about yards because an Olympic pool is about 55 yards. It's actually about 50 meters, which is roughly 55 yards. And if you look at this, so we're talking, this is kind of about half of what the football field was that we looked at. It's a little bit 5 yards more than half. Let's take a look at what it looks like when somebody is swimming in an Olympic-sized pool. Now he's a very fast swimmer because that's Michael Phelps. But as you can see, you know, he's swimming. It's taking a while to get through 50 yards. So 50 yards isn't any short measurement of distance. It's pretty far. Now he's going to turn around and go back. So I'm showing this to you because I want you to really understand the difference between an inch and a foot and a yard and 50 yards or 100 yards. All right, let's talk about a little bit more. Okay, we're going to get a little bit bigger now. This is a quarter-mile racetrack, or 1/4 of a mile. Okay, so if we divided a mile into 4 parts, this would be 1 part. Okay, a quarter-mile racetrack is equal to 440 yards. So I would have to actually clone this 444 times to make it as long as this quarter-mile racetrack. That's a lot of yardsticks, isn't it? Let's take a look at something going on the racetrack, something that you're familiar with. That'll give you some good perspective. Okay? How about some buses? So here we have a bus race on a quarter-mile racetrack. And you all know that buses are pretty big. So this is 1/4 of a mile or quarter mile. So every time they go around one time, they've gone 1/4 mile. And this just gives you a good idea of, how big that is, how far a quarter mile is. Because you all know that buses are pretty big. And look at them go. Okay, so we've looked at feet, well, we've looked at inches, feet, yards, a quarter mile. Let's go a little bit bigger. What about a whole mile? 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. This is not a picture of a mile. I'm just kind of trying to show you, give you a perspective of, miles. A mile is long. I can't really, capture it in a picture. But, looking down these roads, you know that you could go a mile. A mile is far. To give us a little bit of perspective, we can look at the Tour de France route. That's a race that they do in France on bikes. And let's take a look at the route that they go on. And it's showing us on a map. The Tour de France is 2,200 miles. That's a very long race. It takes the racers 3 weeks to complete it. They have to stop and sleep and rest and eat. It takes them 3 weeks to go 2,200 miles on their bikes. So as you can see, this is the route that they take. It's a long, long way. Very, very big commitment. Okay. Let's see. Let's take a look of what it looks like when people really are on that race of the Tour de France. Look at them go. Some aerial views of France. And they're not going slow, they're going pretty fast. Look at that. Okay, so that gave us a really good perspective of all the different measurements: an inch, a foot, a yard, a mile. Let's see. Since we know that the Tour de France is 2,200 miles, and we know that 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards, we could actually figure out how many yards the Tour de France is. All we have to do is multiply 2,200. Let's go ahead and do it now. Multiply that by 1,760. Equals, whoa! Now that is one big number. What I want you to do for part of your homework is I want you to go ahead and put your little commas in there to separate, you know, the different parts of this number, and then I want you to be able to tell me what this number is. Now remember, we're going to put a comma. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. So I gave you a little hint, and then once you've got those in there, you're going to know, you're going to be able to recite for me what that number is. As far as estimating, which was our objective today, I want you to think about this picture of this bus right here. And I want you to estimate for me, now that you've seen sort of the difference between an inch and a mile and a yard and all of those things, I want you to estimate for me how big, how long do you think this bus is? And when I say estimate, I mean, you know, just you're going to get an approximately. You're not really going to measure it because you can't really measure it, can you? The bus isn't really there with you, so you can't measure it. So you're just going to tell me approximately how long it is. And the first thing that you're going to have to decide when estimating is you have to decide, well, what unit of measurement am I going to use? Am I going to use inches? Am I going to use feet? Am I going to use yards? Am I going to use miles? All of those things, you have to ask yourself, which would be the better, quicker way to estimate the length of this bus. And, you know, that's why you had to have some perspective so you could figure out, am I going to do inches, feet, yards, or miles? So I'm not going to tell you the answer. You need to figure out how long this bus is, and I'm hoping that you'll pick the correct one of these four to make your estimation. I can't wait to hear what you guys came up with. Have a great day. Bye.